Every spooky movie has random trivia. And here at Trivial Theater, I explore some of these movies and the random circumstances that make them the scary creations that we love. It's spooky month here at the theater, and we're hitting some kind of obscure horror flicks that rank as Halloween musts. This first one, well, there's really no good way to describe it, other than to say the generic name is the exact opposite of the experience. This is 1977's House. We start with a reminder that this is a movie, and then a photo session that foreshadows quite a lot. Our two friends, Fantasy and Gorgeous, then go on to do average good friend things, synchronized stair walking and hugging while a camera pans. The summer holiday is only a week away, and they're spending quality time together before they part ways. Gorgeous returns home to find that her father has returned after a long absence. He's also brought a new future stepmother to visit, and she comes complete with her own breeze. Gorgeous is upset, and while looking over her deceased mother's photos, she decides that she's going to spend her holidays with a distant auntie, who she hasn't seen in years. A random cat shows up, and her auntie agrees to let her come visit. After seeing Bubbles, and a butt, we meet all of Gorgeous's friends, and it kind of feels like an early version of the Spice Girls. We have the snacker, the bookworm, the free spirit, the musician, the athlete, and the best friend. Mr. Togo, Fantasy's crush and their chaperone, runs into some bad luck on the day of their departure after a cat crosses his path. At least it's set to some jaunty music. While he deals with his butt bucket drum, the girls set off on a train. The countryside turns animated, and Gorgeous gives us her auntie's sad backstory via silent movie. The flashback ends with a mushroom cloud being compared to cotton candy, and we get cat ADR that is fan-fucking-tastic. We finally get our characters' names. Melody, Fantasy, Prof, Sweet, Kung Fu, Mac, and Gorgeous, which fits surprisingly well with what they're into. And then a Lord of the Rings style journey ensues. Their only stop is at a watermelon seller, who points them on their way in an appropriately goofy fashion, and then he has a quality conversation with one watermelon, while the watermelon in the background agrees. A watermelon is given to Auntie, and we get our first indication that things may not be as they seem, as a chandelier pulls double duty as both a light fixture and a pest control specialist. Suddenly, there was a skeleton, and Blanche the cat is yeeted onto Auntie's lap. That right there is the last normal thing that happens in this movie. Mac goes off to get the watermelon, and when Fantasy goes to see what's holding her up, she finds the watermelon has been replaced with Mac's severed head, which has learned to float. Mac gives an unconventional greeting by biting her in the ass. She tries to explain this to her friends, but nobody listens, assuming it's one of Fantasy's daydreams. As this lovely picture of Blanche watches on, we learn Auntie is a loud chewer. But that might be due to the eyeball she keeps in her mouth. And then the watermelon does a little dance to entertain us. Or that might just be the spirit of Mac trying to get our attention. Sweet becomes enamored with an adorable, not at all creepy doll with glowing eyes. At the same time, Kung Fu deals with some stubborn, freshly chopped wood, but she soundly defeats it like the badass that she is. Her reply to all this weird shit is simple, but appropriate. While the girls finish off the dishes, Auntie shows off her renewed ability to walk and disappears into the fridge. She dances on the rafters and then with the skeleton before settling in for dinner as Blanche sings along to a catchy tune. Melody takes over the music, and the skeleton keeps on doing what it apparently loves to do. Away from everybody else, Gorgeous settles in to make herself gorgeous. She puts on what must be a very fierce shade of red, because not only does she grow fangs, she shatters the mirror, and then herself, and then catches fire. Sweet takes part in a pillow fight to end all pillow fights, where all that's left of her is the naked creepy doll from earlier. Shit then really hits the fan, as we enter the incredibly haunted house part of this movie. Gorgeous wanders in a fog, and the house locks Kung Fu, Melody, Prof, and Fantasy in. Well-placed strikes don't work, pacing while deciphering clues doesn't work, and playing the piano doesn't do it either. In turn, the piano takes action by eating Melody's fingers. This makes Fantasy go cross-eyed as the skeleton cheers. The piano continues to eat Melody, which either leaves her laughing or crying. I'm really not sure. But at one point, she does look at her legs being eaten and observes... Elsewhere, Gorgeous poops out a diary and the clock starts bleeding. By reading the diary, we learn that Auntie has done some really screwed up shit. Gorgeous's giant head, lips, and eye further explain how she wanted to get married so badly. She overcame death and eats any unmarried girls that come to the house so she can wear her wedding dress. Weirdly, that's not the most outlandish thing a bridezilla has done. Random haunted items attack everyone, and the cat painting turns evil, leading to a second epic battle for Kung Fu. We get an extreme cat portrait close-up, and then Kung Fu is eaten by a light fixture. She finds her head among random bits of her disembodied friends floating in a weird floral print limbo. Luckily, her lower half perseveres and kicks the painting, which in turn throws a tantrum and starts spewing blood. This leads to the house being flooded and Prof and Fantasy floating on a raft. We get a weird aside in the form of a discussion between the watermelon seller and Mr. Togo, who finally got rid of his butt bucket. It ends with the seller becoming a smoking skull and Togo not being able to stop saying banana. Prof is grabbed by a jar of teeth as a picky with glasses watches on. Fantasy finds that we all float down here until she runs across Gorgeous, who comforts her. The next morning, Gorgeous' future stepmom shows up, personal breeze in tow, and speaks to Gorgeous. And then she catches fire. We get a final message of how love lives forever, and credits roll. I'm really not sure there's a way to properly describe this Japanese horror comedy, other than to say it's an acid trip. I've watched this quite a few times, and I'm still astonished by the path it takes. The Toho Film Company, best known for its wide range of kaiju movies like Godzilla, wanted to make a film similar to Jaws. Director Nobuhiko Obayashi took inspiration from things that scared his preteen daughter. Quote, things that children come up with that can't be explained. The horrors of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings were also influential, showing up as a woman's ghost taking vengeance on those not personally affected by the bombings. Like the script, the effects were meant to look unrealistic, as if a child created them. Most were done without knowing what the final result would be, and in most cases it feels like it worked out okay. The soundtrack not only set the tone for the film as a viewer, but it helped the inexperienced actors understand and get into the feeling of each scene. House was a box office hit in Japan, but was panned by critics. Like a lot of other outside-the-box films, it received much better feedback when it was re-released in 2009. Looking at the technical side, it is a really well put together film. The way the shots transition alone is incredibly cool. Even today you can look at it and see them as outside the box. Although the blue screen and animation look a bit dated, they feel pretty ambitious for the year it was made. The shooting and editing also lend themselves to the sense of weirdness that this movie has. It's not just straight shot for shot. They use interesting angles and perspectives that keep you a little off balance. To me at least, the overall feel of this one does seem like it comes from the mind and perspective of a kid. Stuff happens out of nowhere, and like the random dancing skull that appears so frequently, it's the inconsistency that makes this one pretty consistently entertaining. There are slow parts and some bits that haven't aged as well as others, but they're relatively few in number. As a side note, the iconic cat painting that shows up every now and again still kinda creeps me out. House is more than a movie. It's an experience and one I really continue to enjoy. It's so out there in terms of story and execution. Yet if you were to describe it generally, it just makes it sound like another haunted house story. It's a fever dream and a total mindfuck, but in the best way possible. If you're up for a film of indescribable chaos, I can't recommend it enough. So what do you think? Suggestions for movies, trivial questions, comments, ratings, and a resource to find myself a dancing skull would be appreciated. Thank you so very much for watching.